Welcome back to session 9 of the Total Performance Management series. Today's session explores the emerging trends reflecting a move away from rating employee performance. Performance reviews have long been the standard to evaluate and provide feedback on employees' work, also serving as the critical mechanism for making fair, discernible pay for performance decisions. There's a rationale to do performance reviews. However, the traditional approach of assigning numerical ratings to employees has come under scrutiny over the past few years. Many organizations are recognizing the limitations of this practice and are exploring alternative methods to assess employee performance. The traditional performance review model often relies on a numerical rating system, such as a scale of 1 to 5 to evaluate employees. While this method aims to quantify performance, it has inherent flaws. One major limitation is the subjectivity of ratings, as individual biases and perceptions can heavily influence the final scores. This subjectivity can lead to unfair evaluations, hinder employee morale, and contribute to a toxic work culture. Just imagine if once a year an employee receives a review that attempts to capture the entire year's performance in some written form that may or may not square with the employee's impression of their success. A million things have happened over the course of the year, and the poor manager now has to write it all up with what's referred to as a recency effect. They remember the most recent things, and then ultimately come up with a single rating that the employees now have to live with for the entire next year. It's very deflating. Some companies may give a rating which is all the way down to decimal points. A manager may say, "Congratulations, you received a 2.86 rating, a solid mid-level result, close to a 3, but I'm a tough rater. You should feel fortunate to be able to get that 2.86, which is close to a 3, which represents that you're generally meeting the requirements of the job for this year." Another way to look at this example is how an employee may interpret a 5-level rating system in the form of grades they received back when they were in school. The manager tries to reassure the employee that he or she's a tough but fair rater, yet still, ultimately, they're handing the employee a grade of a C, or in the case I just used, a C minus. An employee could respond with, "I was never a C student in school." No wonder industry data shows time and again that this form of performance review is more of a detriment to employee morale than a motivator. And further, consider this. Let's say a typical employee has a 30-year career, so only 30 milestone moments to receive a formal message as to where they stand professionally. No wonder employees put so much weight on their review results. And far too many managers see this as an administrative burden, something that HR is requiring them to have to do. And many times they're having to do it in the month of December to wrap up the year. And of course, the holidays are on the horizon. And the last thing managers want to be stuck with is having to write a review. And employees are distracted with the holidays and concerned about how this review is probably going to underrepresent where they think they are. It's an unfortunate circumstance all the way around, and it clearly doesn't energize companies going into their next business year. If employers want to send some message of distinguishing levels of performance and recognizing excellence, there's a solid argument to take the following approach, an approach in which I find that many companies are gravitating to, and I recommend it quite often for my clients. Let's get into it. First, there should be an active dialogue going on throughout the course of the year. The journaling approach that we've talked about quite often holds up here as well. Then, the analyzing of performance can result in 3 broad positive tone terms: opportunity for development, successful, or outstanding. So again, if there's been effective journaling throughout the year, there'll be no surprises. The employee can then give their feedback on where they think they are. The manager can give their feedback. Hopefully there's been 360 data incorporated in as well. So you have all of this rich content to draw from. And the conclusion could probably be that most employees are successful to some degree, but instead of forcing managers to make fine distinctions of performance, employees receive this positive wrap-up term of successful, which should represent the majority of employees in any work environment. And then, by exception, there could be clear circumstances in which some employees may be struggling because they're new to the job, they were recently hired, or let's say they were just promoted. It's completely understandable that someone can be recognized for great work, then get promoted to a level in which they need to develop to be fully effective in that job. It's not unusual that in both of those cases, new to the job or recently promoted, that someone receives an opportunity for development result, only as an encouragement for them to be ultimately fully performing within the role that they now occupy. And conversely, there could be some exceptions in which some employees just simply are struggling, that they just have missed the mark for any number of reasons that can be called out in the content of the review and hopefully explored through the journaling process in which manager and employee are working collaboratively towards a recovery. Alternatively, some employees may have an outstanding year, something where they had everything come together. They had the resources to get the work done. They demonstrated creativity. They took initiative. Their results were well beyond the requirements of the job. All of this collectively points to an outstanding rating. And usually outstanding performers are easily identified also. Their manager, colleagues, and others would fully understand that that is a warranted recognition that an employee at the end of the year may receive. I strongly recommend this approach as a healthy alternative to the 5 or more level rating systems that have been the traditional approach for many years. Now, for some companies that are really forward-thinking, they may want to remove the ratings as part of a process of a review altogether, and they'll challenge the status quo by looking at a more holistic and nuanced approach for performance management. And this is a critical point. The content of the feedback can now stand on its own without assigning a rating value. By refraining from assigning numerical scores or some other form of rating, these companies aim to foster a culture of continuous feedback, open communication, and individualized development, along the lines of what was shared in the journaling session that we covered earlier in the series. One significant advantage of not rating employees is the reduction of unnecessary competition that can emerge among team members. When ratings are removed, employees are more likely to focus on collaboration and shared goals rather than outperforming their peers. This shift can contribute to a healthier work environment where teamwork and collective success take precedence over individual achievements. Furthermore, eliminating ratings allows for a more personalized and constructive feedback process. Instead of relying on a numerical score, managers can now engage in meaningful conversations with employees about their strengths, areas for improvement, and career aspirations. This personalized feedback approach fosters a sense of trust and transparency, encouraging employees to actively participate in their own professional development. This doesn't mean performance can't be measured. The data collection process on tangible results to goals and maybe some form of 360 feedback can be incorporated into the body of the performance assessment. That content can stand on its own without having to then apply some sort of conclusive rating. To sum it up here, the value of not rating employees in performance reviews lies in creating a workplace culture that prioritizes collaboration, individual growth, and open communication. As organizations embrace emerging trends in performance management, they move towards more dynamic and inclusive approaches that better reflect the evolving nature of work. By discarding traditional rating systems and adopting innovative methods, companies can pave the way for a more equitable, transparent, and employee-centric future. If 360 feedback is incorporated into the process, there needs to be a well-trained, mature workforce that is committed to taking on this balanced feedback process for their colleagues, a topic which will come up shortly in this series. And then further out, we'll also talk about the importance of having mature, empathetic, humble leaders that are ready to take on the work of helping their employees develop throughout the course of their professional time working together. The quality of leadership and performance management will be our wrap-up session later in the series. Until then, I hope you'll join me next time as we dig deeper into the value of 360 feedback. See you then.